Andy. Inconsistent, inaccurate, and inept. That's how I feel about my dressing. I can never seem to do it the same way twice. I usually wear the wrong things or do my makeup badly, and of course, trying to do anything but a ponytail is out of the question. So far, every time I tried to do my best, I felt like a clown. I was disheartened and disillusioned because I wanted to be able to dress, look, and live as a girl. Of course, the odds were against me ever succeeding. I'm 17, not too tall and a bit but pudgy. I have reddish-brown hair with blue eyes. My name is Andy Grant. I have an older sister, but she's away at school, leaving just my parents and me. Because of my inability to have anything I would call success, when I tried dressing up, I fell into a depression. The vision in my mind simply could not be realized, and the more I tried the worse it got. I became moody and sloppy, which drove my parents nuts, but I didn't know how to get myself out of the never-ending cycle of desire versus ugly reality. As school drew to a close, my grade point average started to collapse, which only drove me further into my depression. Mom tried to find out why, but how could I tell her? My inner desire to be more feminine in every way ran counter to everything she knew about males and our role in society. She was not unaware of the phenomenon, of course, but it was those people over there who do that. How could I tell her that, over there, was alive and well in her own house? And what about my dad? He would freak out. 3 weeks before the end of the year, everything came to a head, erupting in a burst of tears and angry, ugly words. Andrew, I want you to tell me why your grades have fallen so much. You've been an absolute terror since the first of the year, moody, sloppy, curt, even nasty at times. Tell me what's going on. Maybe we can help. I was sitting at my computer desk as Mom looked at me, her normally beautiful face screwed into one of bewilderment and anger. You wouldn't understand. This cannot go on, young man. You tell me what's bothering you, and I mean right now. Her red-tipped finger was pointed at me, her other hand clenched in an unfamiliar fist, her beautiful blue eyes, now a stormy gray, had narrowed and her mouth became a mere slit, red in her anger, tight with frustration. I had seen her this way only once before, when Beth got pregnant in high school. No. Yes. She grabbed my arm and spun me around, coming face to face with me, our noses just inches apart, her eyes glaring and stern. I'm not giving you a choice, Andrew, I'm telling you. Her anger and my frustration clashed and grew hot, yet I remained silent. As her hand grew tighter on my arm, I also grew angry. My secret was mine and mine alone, and by her insisting that I tell her, she provoked my long-held anger at my failures. Her slap wasn't all that hard, but it sent the message that she was serious. In a fit of anger and stupidity, I blurted it out. Okay. You want to know? Well, I want to be a girl. Those few words shocked her so much that she flopped down on the bed, her eyes widening as she stared at me. Silence reigned as we glared at each other, both of us lost in the implications of what I had said. My self-imposed silence was broken, shattering my self-esteem even as I held my head up in prideful anger. Mom sat there silent as she stared at me, her face still showing the shock of what I had said. For what seemed like hours, all we did was look at each other until she suddenly stood up. We'll talk about this after I think about it some more, Andrew, but in the meantime I want this crabby attitude of yours to stop. Understand? I nodded my head yes, and she went to the door, opened it, started to walk out, then stopped and turned to face me. I'll bet you would be quite pretty all fixed up, right, Andrew? Then she left. On that note, I sank deeper into the chair. My foolish, angry outburst had let her in on my secret, leaving me open to ridicule and possibly worse from my father. The tears started to swell in my eyes, dripping down my cheeks until at last the floodgates opened and I started sobbing. I was unable to face the truth, scared that my desire, so well hidden for so long, was now in the open. I could only guess what would happen next. I lay on my bed for a long time trying to reconcile myself to a sure and certain punishment of some kind. Dad was a man that, while unbending in so many ways, was not an intolerant man about minorities, but this was in his own house, his own son this time. I knew what his view of what I wanted would be. He would never understand me, and probably not even try. My best hope was that he would stay silent about my revelation, a kind of tacit approval. Just before he came home, Mom came to my room and sat on the bed next to me. It's been hard to hide a secret like this, hasn't it? I nodded my head as I felt her hand on my back, gently rubbing back and forth. I'll bet that you never get it right. Would you like to try again? I'll help you. I stayed silent while my mind tried to absorb and make sense of what she had said. Well, do you? My mind screamed, yes, while I stayed silent. I do have some experience, you know. Of course, she did. I started to giggle, a nervous giggle that turned into another round of sobbing. Embarrassed at my lack of control, I said nothing. I'll take that as a yes. We'll see what we can do to make you into a girl. Her weight left the bed, then her footsteps sounded as she walked out, closing the door behind herself. Nothing was said at dinner that night, all seemed normal, and afterward, I went to my room. I tried to sleep, but visions of my mother laughing at me kept haunting my dreams. By the morning I was still tired after a restless night, yet also excited. Mom came in and told me that Saturday would be the day. The bigger question was, how would this all end? I could only hope for the best.
My name is Audrey Grant. I'm Andy's mother. His revelation yesterday shocked me right to the core, making me lay awake that night as I went over every single day of his life, trying to figure out what I did wrong. I grew up in the 70s, so I knew about people that wore the clothes of the other sex, of course, and I had even met a few. But this was my son. Not once, not even at Halloween, did he ever express any desire to dress as a girl, so why now? Had he managed to keep his secret even back then? I'm 37, not so old that I don't understand gays, and so on. I went to school with a boy that said he was gay. Benny seemed okay and I accepted him, so why do I feel so ashamed that Andy told me he wants to be a girl? I mean, it's only clothing, right? He was right about his father though. Bill won't have a clue, and won't try to get one either. As a plumber, he works with his hands in a good profession, but he grew up poor and never had the chance to meet anyone that wasn't just like him. He had hoped that Andy would follow him into the trade, but it has been obvious for quite a while that Andy had no inclination that way. He wants to be a writer. I slept badly that night as I wondered how I could get Andy to open up to me, maybe let me help him, but the specter of his father in a rage loomed when my mind drifted to a vision of Andy all dressed up. Andy is like his sister Beth in many ways, same eye color, same pudgy body, about the same height. Andy even has hair that went down his back, just like Beth. I had to find a way to tell Bill and make him understand what had to be done. Andy is on the verge of some kind of breakdown, and if dressing as a girl even once relieves the stress on him, then I have to find a way to help Andy and get his father's blessing.
I'm Bill, Andy's dad. When Audrey told me what Andy wanted to do, I'll admit that my first reaction was to beat my son until he couldn't stand up, before I calmed down, that is. Audrey has a way of making me pay attention to her without raising her voice. When she told me that she had known me for almost a week, I was irate because she and I never keep secrets from each other. Her voice, that same soft contralto of hers, quavered only once as she told me what she wanted to do. She said that Andy needed to try it at least once, just to see himself as a girl, and if it went well, maybe a bit more, like a trip outside of the house. That scared me because of the neighbors. They might see my son, all dressed up as a girl. I could only imagine what he would look like. A clown in a dress. Audrey said this is important to him, very important. She also pointed out that I accepted the situation when Beth was pregnant, and this is no different. I was angry at Beth, of course, a baby at her age. But as she grew larger, I became protective of her, like a grandfather. When she gave the baby away, I was saddened, I guess. I had gotten used to the idea that she was going to be a mother. Now Andy. According to Audrey, if I said no, he'll just graduate, move away, and do it on his own. This way at least we'll have some control. I hated the idea of my son dressing as a girl, but letting him do this on his own and possibly get into trouble was worse. I gave in, but with serious concerns. Audrey told me what she wanted me to do and when, then she told me not to be there. It sounded like I was hiding from my own son.